Welcome to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. This podcast features powerful hypnosis, so do not listen while driving or operating machinery. This recording is not suitable for those with epilepsy or severe mental health issues. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hello, it's Adam here, and in today's episode of The Hypnotist, we're going to be doing a random hypnosis session based on destination, emotions, and nouns, but I'm going to throw in another variable as well. And one of my favorite podcast to listen to is called Brain Software by Chris Thompson and Mike Mandel. And when I originally discovered their podcast, I went on their website and I was able to get a pack of playing cards called the Hypnotic language cards. So on YouTube, you're about to see this that I'm showing here. And what I thought would be useful to add one extra random variable in these hypnosis sessions is for each session that I do, shuffle the pack, take out one card, and then use that perhaps language pattern or phrase regularly throughout that particular hypnosis session. So I know quite a few people that listen are other hypnotherapists, so I thought it might be useful just to see how I integrate some of these hypnotic language patterns into these random hypnosis sessions. So I'm going to start sharing my screen now, and the final bit will be the hypnotic language card part. So the random destination is a place called Ferrol in Spain. Got quite a bit of information about Ferrol. It's a city in the province of A Coruña in Galicia on the Atlantic coast in northwestern Spain. Population of about 70,000. So it's kind of like a reasonable sized town, certainly not a small, but certainly not one of the biggest cities in Spain either. Let's see what it is known for. Okay, so it's on the coast. You've got an impressive cathedral. Okay, this is interesting. You've got a lighthouse called the Cabo Prio or Cabo Praia Lighthouse. And it looks out to the ocean. So it's kind of like a viewing point, but obviously may still function as a functioning lighthouse to ensure boats don't go too close to the mainland. So that's Ferrol in Spain. The random emotion generator, we're going to generate two, is contempt and excitement. I think we've used excitement in a couple of these previous sessions before, but certainly not contempt. So I like that we can fuse a new emotion into these. And then the three random nouns. Here we go. We have frighten, housewife, and pray. So frighten normally is the process of what has to happen in order for someone to get scared. Housewife quite often is a gender role. So particularly in previous generations, perhaps different economical, time, but a lot of the women, the wives in relationships wouldn't need to work, and they saw their role, their duty very much as to look after the house and more domestic duties. Obviously, things have changed a lot since then. So we've got the element of the role, but also what it symbolizes, maybe cleaning, housekeeping, nurturing, whatever it might be. And then the final one is pray. Now, for me as a hypnotist and an atheist, I don't necessarily believe that when people pray, they are praying to a god. My interpretation of praying is that people go inwards. They tend to mimic a lot of hypnotic phenomenon when they're in deep prayer. They close their eyes, focus inwards, generally have inner dialogue rather than speaking out loud. In my opinion, a lot of them will go into a trance. And I believe that in a lot of cases, prayer is a way of communicating with the unconscious mind rather than some kind of extrinsic, kind of omnipotent, being at some level. Again, I respect other people's belief systems when it comes to religion, but we might be able to take this element, this idea of prayer or praying, as a way to tap into the resources of the unconscious. And then I'm going to stop sharing my screen so anyone on YouTube can see me shuffling the pack. And then we can see which of the Mike Mandel language cards we're going to be using. So I'm just going to stop it there, take the top card. Now this is 6 of diamonds. It's eventually. So anything can happen eventually. This is so vague, it makes anything believable given enough time. And if it's going to happen eventually anyway, then why not let it happen now? You can tell your subject, eventually you're going to recover from that grief that's been troubling you, because all things pass eventually. So that's the word, 6 of diamonds, eventually, that I'll be using. And my intention is to get through the entire pack of cards in these random hypnosis sessions. But so we don't get duplication each time I do one, I'm going to put this card to the side and then the next time shuffle the remaining pack, so we get new variables, new language patterns in these hypnosis sessions. So we have a destination of Ferrol in Spain. We have contempt and excitement as the emotions. We've got the nouns of prayer, let me just double check these again, frighten and housewife. So we're going to be using those. And we've got the hypnotic language word of eventually. This could be an interesting one. It's obviously the first time I'm using an additional variable in the random hypnosis. Sit back and relax and enjoy the session. Take a deep breath in, and as you breathe in, get a sense that you're breathing in a feeling of calm, resourceful relaxation. And as you exhale, allow any feelings of stress or worry or tension to leave your body in your outward breath. As you continue to breathe in and breathe out, if it's safe to do so, on the next outward breath, allow your eyelids to close, taking you to a deeper level of relaxation. As your physical body relaxes, your mind perhaps goes more alert and fine-tuned to my words and my suggestions. And sooner or later, but eventually, you'll notice that your body can't help but relax deeper and deeper, and in doing so, enables me to navigate, be a tour guide if you like, of your unconscious mind, taking you to different places. Places, literally and metaphorically, that are impossible physically, but perhaps are instantly available within your own imagination. And sometimes confusion helps to create a window of opportunity to take advantage of the incredible power of your unconscious mind. I want you to use the power of your imagination to imagine that you are in northern Spain. You're in the northwest part of Spain. Imagine you are in a town called Ferrol. As far as towns go, you could imagine it as a large town or a small city. There on the coast, looking outwards to the Atlantic Ocean. I want you to get a sense that there are old, picturesque buildings, and there are two in particular that really tap into your imagination. And the first is a cathedral. an old cathedral, perhaps from hundreds of years ago. You can see the brickwork, maybe the bell tower, the archways, the white walls. And imagine walking into this cathedral. See the impressive surroundings, perhaps windows, artwork, wooden benches. And I want you to imagine there is a wooden bench there with a soft cushion that you can put on the floor so that as you kneel down, you can get a sense of what it would be like if you were to have a prayer. Now, I don't know your religion, and I don't need to know your religion, because this isn't a real prayer. This is your imagination, imagining what it would be like to communicate not to a God, but to your unconscious mind through the vehicle of prayer. I want you to imagine that you're now kneeling on that cushion, looking towards the altar of this cathedral, and you're starting to pray. And I want you to imagine that there is one specific thing that you're thinking about as you start to pray. I want you to imagine something from your past that created a feeling of contempt. And perhaps something has already come to mind, or perhaps the idea of contempt doesn't resonate with your unconscious mind and a specific memory. In which case, sooner or later, but certainly eventually, a memory or a moment will come to mind of when you felt contempt. That feeling of contempt. Somehow, a deep dissatisfaction. A feeling of perhaps entitlement, that you deserve something and you resent the idea that you didn't get what you needed. Or perhaps a variation of other things, but you know that you're not happy in this moment. And perhaps that contempt is directed at an individual or perhaps an organization. And as that memory comes to mind, I want you to imagine that you start to pray. And what you're praying for is to learn a lesson from that moment of contempt. Because contempt is a very different emotion from apathy. Maybe you could have had that same moment, that same experience, and felt nothing, except you didn't. You experienced that moment and you had a feeling of contempt, which means there is a distinction, a lesson within that memory, that moment, that can enable you to level up, to evolve, to become even better than you already are. And as you start to wonder what the lesson is within that feeling of contempt, notice a sense of excitement. Not for the possibility of learning one lesson in your life, but the bigger sense of excitement that if you can dig through memories of perhaps those moments when you felt contempt or anger or jealousy or anything else, and learn a lesson from those moments that inoculates you from similar moments in the future, isn't it the case that it means that your future has more positive moments than would be the case had you not gone through this process? Remember, you're not praying to a God, you're praying to your own unconscious mind. All of those infinite resources abilities. And as you start to pray to learn the lesson, feel that sense of excitement start to resonate in every cell in your body. And eventually, whether it's now, in a few moments' time, or perhaps in the next days or weeks, but eventually, the lesson from that moment of contempt will come to mind. But not in isolation. The moment you realize what that lesson is, your unconscious mind will start to think of, with the benefit of hindsight, how you would have handled that exact same situation with the lesson already applied. And in doing so, it enables your unconscious mind to learn more than just this lesson. What starts to happen, I want you to imagine that inside your unconscious mind is the role of a housewife. This housewife doesn't need to be female, it can be any gender. But imagine there is some function, a part of your unconscious mind that loves to be organized and to ensure that things are in good order. And once this lesson is learned and a new moment recreated as to how you would have handled that situation, had you learned that lesson at the point where it was originally experienced, you'll notice that you can imagine what it would be like to have that same moment without any feelings of contempt whatsoever. And in doing so, this inner housewife within your unconscious mind will start to go to work, digging through previous memories, extracting the lesson, and then rehearsing how you would have handled the same situations had the lesson already been learned at that point. Sometimes you have to clean up a mess, rubbish. But sometimes the biggest problems are where they're solved before they even happen. Imagine a household where all the administration and paperwork is all in order. Anything that needs to be insured is insured. Anything that could frighten the beings in that household with problems and stress has already been resolved before these things even happen, so that as situations and emergencies arise, they're very easy to allocate resources to deal with those moments, because all those other things that could cause problems and stress and overwhelm are already pre-handled. I want you to make a picture in your mind that if there was an unconscious housewife, a part perhaps of one of your many subpersonalities that was there to organize memories linked to lessons, linked to emotions, what would that housewife look like? Is she old and stressed and overwhelmed, or is she young and organized, enthusiastic and efficient? And I want you to imagine that you are evolving, updating whatever positive qualities you would want in that inner housewife within your mind. Do that as part of your prayer. Pray for a highly organized inner housewife within your subconscious mind that can go to work, extracting valuable lessons from previous memories and then rehearsing them to see if, given the same circumstances, how would you have handled those situations differently? And then there is no need to be frightened about tough moments in your life, because you've already freed up so much more resources. And there is no need to feel any contempt. for things in the past, because either you win or you learn. There is no failure, only feedback. And allow that contempt to evolve into excitement. That every problem is an opportunity to get even better. That's right. Because eventually, doesn't everything always work out for the best? As you think back in your past, things you thought were big problems eventually became meaningless. The toughest times eventually passed. Eventually, even a long winter turns into spring. Eventually, those darkest moments become places that gave you the most amount of resilience and strength. Eventually, all the resources that you need will come to you. And as you feel yourself, knees on that cushion in that cathedral in Ferrol in Spain, pray for all the resources, knowing that eventually they will come. But sometimes you'll need to extract the lesson from a moment in your life in order to create the catalyst to release that resource, that distinction, that knowledge, so that you can actually use it. And therefore, when problems come in your life, there's no need to feel contempt. Eventually, you'll start to feel excitement when problems come along, because that's how you get better. And then you realize all of this, the cathedral, this Spanish city,